Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Honored to be joined by Tony Kosher to my right, the chairman of Amtrak, and Steve Gardner, the chief executive, and their colleagues, as well as Kevin Corbett to my left and his colleagues at NJTransit, as well as some members of our administration. So you may recall, because some of you were here, at the end of June, this group, I convened in this room to address what were at that time unacceptable, long, disruptive delays on NJTransit that were a consistent problem, not just in June. I think June is probably, objectively the worst month, but it certainly was something that was frustrating all of us. And those delays, you know what the implications were. They made commuters late to work, late to dinner. It robbed them of countless hours of family time. But we had a very constructive meeting, and I give both sides of the organizations here a lot of credit for that. We walked out of that meeting with actionable plans to remediate service disruptions, including developing a joint plan to accelerate the investigation into the underlying causes of disruptions between New Jersey on the one hand and New York City on the other. And we assured at that time New Jerseyans that we would provide them with the high-quality service they deserve. And as a token of our deep appreciation for our customers' continued loyalty and patronage, particularly during a time when transit service did not consistently meet either their expectations or mine or ours, we also, you may recall, issued a week-long fare holiday on NJTransit at the end of August. Through it all, our team remained in constant and consistent communication with both NJTransit and Amtrak to ensure progress was being made. And with today's report, which we're releasing, we're proud to announce that Amtrak has now completed its inspection of all 240 miles of catenary overhead wire systems between Trenton, New Jersey, and New York, New York. And through that inspection, I believe this number is right, more than 2,000 hardware components were either repaired or replaced. No systemic failures of pantographs, the device on top of the train which draws electricity from the catenary wires, have been identified at any point through the investigation, although there have been issues that have been highlighted and underscored in at least episodically. Bless you on pantographs. Bless you. Everybody okay out there? But on a more fundamental level, our infrastructure, we can never lose sight of this, is more than a century old, and in order to provide the service our riders deserve, it will eventually need to be replaced, which is why we are more than happy to report that the Federal Railroad Administration announced last week that $300 million in federal grants will be headed to projects addressing infrastructure concerns along the Northeast corridor. I had a great constructive call with Polly Truntenberg at the department when they awarded these funds. These funds will support Amtrak's continued efforts to upgrade and modernize aging infrastructure, helping us deliver on our promise to restore reliability for the commuters, for businesses, and families who rely on this critical rail corridor. As these important infrastructure projects advance, Amtrak will continue to perform supplemental infrastructure inspections and repairs as needed between Trenton and New York City, and NJTransit will continue implementing its enhanced equipment inspections. And by the way, I believe this is the case and will continue to be the case. A senior group of representatives from each organization meet not once, not twice, but 3 times weekly, which was also a step born out of our meeting in late June. Coming out of today's meeting, our commitment to modernizing our region's rail infrastructure remains ironclad. And today's meeting does not mark the end of our shared efforts. We've already committed, I could say on behalf of our team in both organizations, to do another summit, if you will, in April. So that's timed to preempt the hot summer months to make sure that we are all as collectively prepared as possible. We all have each other's cell phones. There's no topic that we communicate on more regularly, at least in my case, than infrastructure and transit And so we're not going to wait till April to speak to each other again, I promise you that. But that'll be another summit opportunity to take stock of where we are. I am as dedicated as ever to ensuring rail service for New Jerseyans is reliable, that it's efficient and accessible in both the short and long term. And I believe that these completed repairs and the infrastructure investments yet to come and the ongoing inspections and cooperation will make sure New Jerseyans have an easier time getting where they need to go when they need to get there. So again, I look forward to continuing the conversation with all the leaders here today, and I thank them again for everything they do. There's been an enormous amount of work by them and their teams, and I am and our team is forever grateful for that. Let me first turn to Kevin Corbett, representing New Jersey Transit, and then Tony Kosha, and if Steve Gardner would like to weigh in as well, representing Amtrak. Kevin?
Governor, since we last met back in June, Amtrak and New Jersey Transit have been joined at the hip in a fully committed partnership, and I think that's exhibited the amount of work that has gone in has been really a huge workload. And I think some people were expecting a single root cause, and I think we haven't identified any proverbial smoking gun as to what caused those series of incidents. But the one thing that has become clear with the thousands of actions that the governor referred to, both along the repairs along the corridor that Amtrak has undertaken in partnership with us and across a range of areas, has clearly yielded positive results for our customers. This work was greatly contributed to a noticeable decline in major disruptions on the Northeast Corridor over the past several months. I think Stephen can talk to the data. Actually shows we're back to what the acceptable level was several years ago. At that norm, and in addition to the work accomplished over the last 5 months, our teams have been meeting no less than 3 times a week, a technical committee with two other meetings a week with Jim Sincaglia and his staff and his peers, and that has really helped focus, making sure that the best work is delivered week by week as we picked over the various issues. And we are committed to sustaining that effort, certainly from New Jersey Transit side, to make sure that we have the same level of attention to reduce and mitigate any potential impact for future disruptions to our customers. In parallel, the key thing is the long-term permanent solutions, and that is where we are really as the governor said, we're talking about 90, 100-year-old infrastructure that's well beyond its useful life, that Amtrak has been doing a yeoman's job in maintaining. But we have to look to the modernization of that antiquated infrastructure along the corridor. Much of it was in bad shape when Amtrak inherited it more than 50 years ago, and has not had the funding now to be able to catch up, as time is not our friend on this. So in that regard, the announcements that the governor referred to, the FRA, is a good down payment, but it is not all that's needed. We're talking billions of dollars of work to try to accelerate and catch up before the system continues to deteriorate, so that we can get ahead of the curve and behind that. And in that regard, we've worked very closely with Stephen and his staff, and as well as our delegation, to make sure that we get the money that we need. This is a good down deposit, but we still need hundreds of millions going forward in the next few years. And I'm sure Tony or Stephen will talk more about what they need to be able to deliver their part. On our part specifically, though, we're also looking at, we installed fiberglass protectors and exploring the automatic drop system on pantographs that Amtrak uses, and we're looking at other technology to help provide resiliency against impact from any damage from Canton or anywhere else. That will also help reduce the severity of any future incidents. And on that, to date, we've installed approximately 60% on our pantographs. And I think also is important, a lot of times, as a regular rider myself, you get it, is you can deal with the delay if you know what's coming. So one of the things we've also done is in Amtrak's control office, we call it the Amtrak 40 office in New York, Penn Station, we've added additional staff here. So like a pilot who's flying a plane that has to focus on the operational challenge, we now have additional staff who can help communicate quicker back to the train crews so they can get the information to our riders quicker. So that's another step on the customer service side that we've taken as well.
Thank you. And again, I want to shout out Jim and Justin on your team who've done great work. And I want to give a special shout out to Diane Gutierrez-Scacchetti, former Chief of Staff and former chair of NJTransit, who continues to be an incredibly important person in the running of the state of New Jersey, particularly in the infrastructure arena. Diane, great to have you. With that, please help me welcome the chairman of the board of Amtrak, Tony Kosha.
Thank you, Governor. And let me begin by thanking you, Governor, because it was your initiative to bring this group together to get people to focus on getting us to a better place, which is the reason why we're here today to report that we have made an enormous amount of progress. But and I'm going to turn it over to our CEO in a minute to share some of the details on what's been done in the last several months. But let me just sort of begin by making a couple of points, though. First of all, we are acutely aware of the fact that the only metric that matters are people who get on our trains and get from their point of origin to their ultimate destination. No other metric matters. We can talk to you for hours about the number of inspections we do, the number of things we fix, how much money we spend, all of which is very, very important to understanding whether progress has been made or not, but all that matters are the people who get on our trains and get safely and efficiently from point A to point B. That is our mission, and that's what we're here to accomplish. And in fact, the truth is that, you know, in order to accomplish that in the environment we find ourselves in, where people who preceded us, certainly preceded the governor, preceded me, Stephen, Kevin, as well as in many other places, chose to continue to kick the can down the road, not lift the rug up and see what's underneath it, not try to fix things, not try to get us to a better place, but rather just hope that it can kind of hold off until the next person's watch. Well, this group decided not to take that approach. Now, there's a downside to that, as I'm sure you can understand, because when you do lift up the rug and when you move the couch, you find out what's behind it, and sometimes it's not very pleasant. But we've taken this on, head on. We have the responsibility of running a system that uses 40-year-old trains and 70-year-old catenaries and 100-year-old tunnels, where we're running hundreds of intercity trains from Amtrak and thousands of commuter trains around the country on a system that was never built for anywhere near the level of use that it has right now. Now, that is not a reason to say we can't do better. The governor asked us to do better. He said you must do better. And New Jersey Transit and Amtrak have worked incredibly hard and put in the thousands of hours that people have to do. Not what I'm doing right now or what we're doing, but the people who are out in the field day in and day out looking for ways to make the system operate better. And in fact, we know we can make progress. We've done that. Amtrak actually, in the pre-COVID period, got to the height of its efficiency period, and in that year where we had gotten to our best operating performance in the company's history, we invested $1.5 billion in trying to basically maintain this national system, a woefully inadequate number. In fiscal 2024, we invested $4.5 billion, and this year we will invest $6.5 billion. That's the level of investment that is going to give us a fighting chance of turning this railroad and this system into something that serves the people who rely on us as well as they do. But as Kevin pointed out, this fight is definitely nowhere near over. We've got a lot more work to do. We've got to keep cooperating. It is not inappropriate at all for people to put pressure on Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. Every time pressure is put on us, that's just one more reminder that we can do better and we have to do better. So this is by no means sort of the end of the road, but we're pleased to be here today to say we've made an enormous amount of progress. Again, I'm grateful to the governor because leadership in convening people to get them to focus on the job that needs to be done is a very significant measure in getting to a better place, but we all have a lot of work still to do. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our CEO to share some of these things.
Steve.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Governor, again for your leadership here. Thank you on behalf of everyone in Amtrak for our strong partnership, Kevin, with New Jersey Transit and all the work we are accomplishing together. As Kevin said and the Governor and our Chairman mentioned, we've made a lot of progress. We came here before you to outline the steps we were going to take together to look at all the parts of the system here that contribute to delivering service reliably to customers, and we have fulfilled the many steps that we outlined, whether those are additional inspections, heightened level of maintenance, and a whole series of technical investigations and collaboration to look for areas of vulnerability that we could shore up and provide attention to so that we head into the remainder of the summer when we were back here earlier and into the fall at a higher level of reliability. And we have achieved that. We are now back to levels of on-time performance and Amtrak's delivery of New Jersey Transit trains that are back to our historic norms. And while those are not good enough, we aim to get better and better. They reflect the fact that our work has stabilized the system, returned back the kind of service people were used to prior to this period in the early summer. And we have learned more that I think is going to allow us to approach the coming year with a higher degree of certainty that we can perform as expected. Now, we've got more work to do for sure across these assets, but we have the kind of partnership with New Jersey Transit and the focus necessary to achieve better results. As everyone has said, it's not just about the things we can fix today. It's also about putting in motion the longer-term modernization and rehabilitation of this whole set of infrastructure. And there, the announcements of the nearly $300 million in grants that were recently awarded to this team is a huge, huge step forward. Collectively, between the projects already funded through the federal government and partnerships involving Amtrak and New Jersey Transit, and the ones that were just announced, we're talking about over 100 miles of track that will be upgraded to brand new standards as part of these overall programs. So new wires, new electrical systems, new signals, upgraded and new track. These are generational investments that are going to make a difference for decades to come in reliability and capacity, which is fundamental here because it's not simply about meeting people's expectations. It's about creating the opportunity to grow, to allow more people to benefit from both New Jersey Transit and Amtrak service in this region. Core to that, of course, is the ongoing funding commitments that we've received from the federal government and the support, and this I want to give the governor a lot of credit for, the state's willingness to invest and put forward the matching dollars that allow us to go capture these federal investments. We're competing against other parts of the country, other parts even of the Northeast Corridor for investments here to upgrade this system, and New Jersey's leadership here has been steadfast and will need to continue to be so that we can capture the dollars here and put it into this most important part of the infrastructure. But I'm here to say on behalf of Amtrak that we appreciate the focus that we've received, and we have really a constant team working all day and night here to figure out ways we can further enhance reliability. We're going to maintain that tempo, and we are learning new ways and new areas of focus so that as we go forward, we can expect better results.
Tony and Steve, thank you, and to Jerry and Lauren, your team, again, like NJ Transit, outstanding, and a lot of work that you all have put in and continue to put in. Aaron is on my team. I say thank you to him as well. I just would underscore one thing that Tony said, and then we'll throw it open for a few questions. We're not tearing our rotator cuff, patting ourselves on the back today. This is if we were a car, this is a 10,000-mile checkup. How are we doing? What have we accomplished? Where are the holes? This is an ongoing body of work. And again, as Tony said, we're making up for, and Kevin alluded to this as well, 90 to 100-year-old infrastructure, and the fact that we did kick the can down the road for far too long. We promised from moment one we wouldn't do that, and we've had great partners in that respect. And that's not to say that we haven't had bumps in the road. This past summer certainly represented a big one. With that, what do you got? Please.
Grants, of course, that everybody is focused on the single grants and the catenary grants. You notice that those are for project development and design. How do you see this project going forward with an administration coming into Washington that may not be Amtrak's best friend as far as getting the money for construction and getting these things fixed before we have more summers of hell?
Yeah, I'll start, and I'd like the Amtrak folks to chime in. We had that very conversation. The good news, listen, I spoke to President-elect Trump last week. The biggest part of our conversation was about the Portal North Bridge and reflecting on the fact that he was proud that he greenlit it. It looks like we'll be able to cut a ribbon on that next year on time and under budget. I think given his own personal background outside of government and the fact he understands infrastructure as well as he does as a former president and now president-elect, and he understands the Northeast Corridor really well. I think those are all good facts. That's not to say we think we can sit in our hands and let the grass grow. So we had that very discussion, and I'll turn it over to either Tony or Steve to give some more color specifically on those grants.
The grants are very important. Both the two that you mentioned and particularly the grant for Sawtooth and Substation 41 are all building out that resiliency on the electric traction side and helping us replace these assets. We feel very strongly that there's a strong bipartisan support for these investments. The Northeast Corridor's impact in the region, I think, is well known both within the region and beyond. So we're going to be making the strong case about these projects and, of course, delivering the projects on time in terms of the design and pushing aggressively for the construction funding. As the governor mentioned, I think there is a long history with the Trump administration prior around these projects and the importance of the Northeast Corridor, and so we're certainly going to build, I think, on the track record we've developed here and try and advance these projects as quickly as we can and demonstrate their import.
Thank you. Brenda, you had a question?
Yeah, essentially following up on Larry, the projects, the money is predominantly, as I pointed out, focused on development, on planning, the actual shoveling groundwork. First of all, when do you expect to see the signal work, the technical work? And again, you're talking about an administration that is devoted now to the President-elect President's mandate to cut funding. How do you anticipate hundreds of billions of dollars that you're going to need to follow through?
So just a couple, I'll give one or two top-line thoughts, and again, Amtrak should weigh in here. First of all, we're not sitting on our hands. I think I mentioned earlier over 2,000 pieces of hardware. I think 1,100 of them, I was told, related to the catenary system, have already been repaired or replaced since we last gathered in this room in June. So we're not waiting just for those grants. We're incredibly honored that the grants are coming our way, notwithstanding they're a fraction of ultimately what we need. And I think Tony would use the word, I'm pretty sure this is the word you'd use, we want to obligate those funds as fast as possible, and that's something that we are, and I could say these guys in particular, are committed to. Anything you want to add to that?
You have it exactly right, Governor. We are, of course, focused on upgrading and maintaining the infrastructure as we have been over this past 6-month period and prior, and we will continue to do that. But we'll be working with the new administration with these grants to be able to figure out how we can get that work done as efficiently as possible. We have to do the environmental work and the design work. And so we think there's certainly a strong interest from what we can understand so far from the new administration to make things more efficient, to get better outcomes, and we'll be working to try and build partnerships there to get these dollars and this portion of the program through. Of course, it's very important that we get the right designs and be able to do all the environmental work, but we want to make this just like Portal Bridge has been, an example of how we can accelerate and as a team take projects further and faster and get money into the ground quicker so that we can deliver not just the interim elements that make sure we have better reliability now, but really the 21st century elements of infrastructure that are going to take a whole step function improvement for riders in the future.
Kevin would want me to say that Portal North Bridge being on time and under budget is good proof to any administration, certainly to the new administration, that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really has become a national prototype, and people say you can't do mega projects in the Northeast on time. They're always years over and billions over, and in fact, that is clearly not the case right now. You see one of the tide arches moving up by February. The bridge will be structurally complete, and as certainly, as the governor said, the president-elect noted that. I'd be willing to give him, even though I'm sure he's a better golfer, I'll give him 8 strokes on his own golf course in New Jersey. You know, that helps. But I think don't underestimate, a lot of this is formula fund. A lot of it's fought out in the T&I committee and our delegation in New Jersey. I'll let the governor talk to it both in a bipartisan. Traditionally, a lot of transportation was, bipartisan, who got what share. And we have a very strong delegation on both sides of the aisle in New Jersey who are very fierce at fighting for transit and get it. So that's another thing not to
Thank you,
forget.
Kevin. Sir.
Yes, Governor, to you and the others, what guarantees can you offer riders that Gateway, as designed, will go forward and will survive the Trump administration?
I think that is a project where the monies are obligated, shovels are in the ground, work is underway. It makes so much sense. Again, you've got an incoming president. You've got a president who's leaving us who knows trains better than any president in the history of the United States, and you've got a guy coming in who knows this region as well as anybody. That to me is well down the lane, and I have a very high degree of confidence. Yes. I'm sorry.
Hold on. Look, it's a great question, and as someone who's been in the space for a very long period of time, it is so obviously clear that one of the reasons why getting large transformative projects completed in the United States is a function of people trying to sort of manage them within election cycles, which is not possible. They're just things that are too big and take too long, and you couldn't possibly do it within the beginning or end of any one person's administration. And so what I think is really important for all of us to do is to stay focused on momentum for things that we know make sense, are right, and willing to justify and defend those things and be able to support why they're important to do and not be dissuaded by changes in administration as altering that pattern. Look, Amtrak is a perfect example of it. In the last decade, Amtrak's made an enormous amount of progress in terms of serving people who want intercity passenger rail. And Amtrak shifted during that period away from sort of worrying about whether every 4 years things were going to change and just sort of put its head down and did the work that needed to be done. I'm very, very confident, both because resources have been committed to it, but more importantly, because the Trans-Hudson development that Gateway represents is such a good thing, not just for this region, but for the Northeast, for the country, for the economy. I'm confident that as administrations change, they'll embrace it, they'll support it, and we'll complete the project. And I think we have that argument to make.
And by the way, the Portal North Bridge, as you know, is part of the Gateway, the broader Gateway project. Someone had a question over here. Please.
Thank you. I'm sure you're all very conscious of 2026 and the World Cup. How will some of these changes progress that you've made impact that in a positive way, we hope, right?
Yep.
Moving people around during the World Cup. And what can be done in time in year between to make it so?
Yeah. And by the way, since we last convened in late June, we've been awarded a whole bunch of games for the World Club Cup, which is next summer. And so that's a gift at many levels. The level that pertains to your question is we're going to have a so-called shakedown cruise next summer with a very full calendar of 9 big soccer matches and about 15 or 20 showstopper concerts. And so we're getting our reps in before the World Cup. The Portal North Bridge is a game changer. You recall that goes from a swing bridge where you had to open it, let marine traffic through, then close it and hammer the peg shut. That's going to no longer be the case. That's a span bridge, and we won't have to deal with that anymore. So that alone is a big deal. The Hudson River Tunnel projects will not be done by then, so that we'll have to rely on the 2 tunnels, the 2 tracks that exist. Kevin should weigh in here, but we've done a lot. I think back to whatever was a BTS, the Korean boy band, where we had a really bad outing, and we committed, all of us, and at that point Diane was still chair and Kevin was running it, and obviously I'm the governor. We committed that we would not let that experience happen again. And so getting that experience to be really good has been job number 1. I think you saw the Taylor Swift concerts. As compared to the entire country, we move people both by rail and bus, as well as in their automobiles, in and out of those 3 concerts faster than any other venue that she played in America. That's not to say we're perfect. That's not to say getting from Secaucus to the Meadowlands does not continue to be a challenge for us, but for the most part, these are positive developments, both infrastructure and operationally.
Yeah,
I'll turn to our biggest Taylor Swift fan,
Yeah.
Kevin Corbett.
Yeah, when I forgot to tell my daughter when the governor said, "Where's your Emma? Isn't she here?" And I was like, "I'm working, boss." Like, my daughter's never forgiven me for that. But the fact, I think, you see, we work very closely with FIFA, the host committee, as well as the international, particularly on the transportation plan. We've worked well with the International Association of Transit, so we had the best people from London, from Paris. They were just over working with Rutgers Kate, UITP's organization. We had the best leaders from around the world who had that experience, London, Paris, Rio, et cetera, South Korea. So we've been working and really getting in detailed plans, obviously working with all our partners in here, including Amtrak participated in those, and we have a series of those going so that I think FIFA, it won't speak for them, you can ask them, but has told us that of all the 25 places they're dealing with, they feel that on the transit side they're most comfortable with us. And to the governor's point on the Taylor Swift, that was an outside metric, that we were the only venue where they actually had a decrease in road traffic by so many people using transit. And we get people, as you see in all our events now, 45 minutes in and out. So
We've kept a lot of the inner workings of the World Cup, the proverbial light under the bushel, but I'll give you an example. Earlier this week, there was a gathering of 150 folks at the Meadowlands, which I kicked off, mostly focused on security and law enforcement. So the leadership of NYPD, New Jersey State Troopers, our respective Homeland Security offices, all federal branches were there. But importantly, Fran O'Connor was right in the middle of it. The commissioner, Diane's successor, is the commissioner of the Department of Transportation. So transit as a general matter, not just by rail, is a huge focus as it relates to the CUP. Please.
Yes, so you were saying that the grant is obligated, $300 million.
No, I didn't say it was. It is in the process of it. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's awarded, but not awarded.
Awarded, not yet obligated.
By the 20th of January, will it be, or?
I'll defer to these folks.
I do have another question.
Okay, why don't you give it to, I'm concerned about the clock.
How much will it take for construction of this aging system? We got $300 million goes to the construction, and how long will it take to fix this 90-year-old system?
Well, the $300 million award covers 4 different projects. So there are different, some of that is for construction or some of it's for design. So it depends on which project. But in general, these phases of design and environmental review that we're doing for both the signal upgrades and the electric traction upgrades, they will allow us to establish that ultimate construction budget and the ultimate schedule. Focus will be to get that work done in a couple of years. Our goal would be to even shorten that so that we can get into construction sooner, and that will allow us to progress into the next level of funding as well, so we can capture the dollars and go into taking a whole new set of infrastructure into service. So again, the $300 million covers a variety of different projects. So these are different areas. We can follow up with you on what we think the ballpark will be. But again, this design period is what allows us to have a concrete budget and a schedule to work forward for these projects.
Let's keep going. Yes, do a couple more. We got to go. Thank you.
Kevin, you said that you have an idea of something done for what caused the meltdown over the summer. Are you still investigating it, or?
I think the lack of a smoking gun, and we all have technical firms working to help, including the manufacturer of the pantographs, same manufacturer for both us and Amtrak. So I think it's more the repairs when you try to recreate what was, causing problems. A lot of those things have been addressed by, several thousand repairs on the system by putting protective chip strips so that one of the things is not just if the pantograph breaks, Amtrak has a system where even if the catenary damages the pantograph will drop so it doesn't get tangled in the wires. So there are things that we're looking to incorporate as best practices, and we put these fiberglass protective chip strips, so even if it's a catenary, a clip hanging for a catenary damages, rather than damaging our carbon strip on it, it may crack the fiberglass but doesn't damage the pantograph so it doesn't get caught in the wires, things like that.
I should just say one thing. With the absolute support of everybody from my seat over, Amtrak has commissioned, in addition to the inspections that these two organizations have done together, they've belt and suspended this and have commissioned a third-party to kick the tires on what the conclusions that these two organizations came to. More on that later, please. In this line of business, you can't make promises. What you could do is you can increase your odds that you will have fewer challenges. That is my way of thinking. I'll combine both of your questions. The smoking gun in the summer of 2018, we first got here, is that my predecessor had let all the engineers in NJTransit basically attrit, and we didn't have enough people to run the trains. So we said, okay, that's the smoking gun. That doesn't mean that you don't have infrastructural, mechanical equipment issues, because you do in this line of business with big, heavy equipment. Steve mentioned that the average on-time performance right now for Amtrak infrastructure, New Jersey Transit trains riding on them is in the low 90s. I'd like that to be in the mid to high 90s, but the fact of the matter is that's consistent with performance pre-last summer. So on the engineers, we knew exactly what we had to do, and we did it. And we haven't had any for 4 or 5 summers. We have not had issues. We couldn't run a train on a Friday or a Monday because we didn't have enough engineers. So you can't, in this line of business, I'll speak for everybody, you can't make a promise, but you can increase your odds that you'll have fewer challenges, and particularly delays. Anybody else, sir?
Kevin, you alluded a couple times to service changes to accommodate the work at Amtrak. Are you going to be making service changes, or?
Yes, I think Stephen referred that. We're looking at right after Thanksgiving. The team has been working. They have a meeting, sitting down, looking at specific track outages because we are the busiest. I think one of the reasons that even the Pennsylvania Railroad didn't upgrade a lot of the systems that they have back in the 50s, 60s, or 70s was because it's the busiest stretch. Particularly all the interlockings, all our system at some point, even if it doesn't go to Penn Station, New York, whether it be the coastline, Raritan Valley line, at some point, 60% of our trains are going to touch the Northeast Corridor, and those are the busiest areas. So, being able to take those outages are going to be painful. We have to look at the schedule, but we have to be very tactical, and Laura certainly knows that, and Gary. We have to do that to minimize the impact. So, but we have to look at shoulders. One of the things with the resources we have, and Tony often says that, we have to be smarter and better with our resources. And just like the national economy, productivity is where you're going to get the gains. And the way we can get that productivity is by having strategic outages, whether they be 55-hour outages, on the weekends, which we did on Portal, which has helped periodically, or, an extra hour at night, which is not just the trains that are scheduled, but we also have to reposition trains for the next morning. So we're going to look at getting windows, minimizing the impact as much as possible, but there will be schedule changes for select trains so we can give them that opportunity to get that. And Jim is working on that, and that'll be coming in the next month or so.
We got to go. I want to thank the Amtrak leadership, the NJTransit leadership. I want to thank all of you for coming out. Again, this is an interim, how are we doing on the commitments we all made to each other and most importantly to our commuters in late June. I think speaking on behalf of all of us, this is a work in progress, but the needle is going in the right direction. Don't expect perfection, but we're going to do our damnedest to get as close to perfection as possible. And all of this is in the context of infrastructure that's really, really old. And I want to commend both organizations, and I want to say to our commuters out there, we will run through the tape. In my case, over the next 14 months, we will leave no stone unturned to deliver the best possible performance. Thank you all.